If you're one of those folks that came out into the comments section of my video where I talked about the Royal Enfield Himalayan 450 pulling to the right, and you were all like, toughen up, it's not a problem, keep your hands on the handlebars and it won't happen, I'm so good at motorcycles, blah 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 blah, you might want to click off this video and go watch something else. But if you're still here, and you want to hear about what's going on with the pulling to the right issue on my Royal Enfield Himalayan 450, stick around because it's story time. Before I get to the probable cause and potential solutions for the pull to the right issue I'm having with my Royal Enfield Himalayan 450, let me just start off with a little bit of history. I bought my Royal Enfield Himalayan 450 back in, July 8th, something like that. And I kind of knew from the very beginning that I was gonna fall in love with this bike. And inevitably, that has happened. I have absolutely 100% fallen in love with my Royal Enfield Himalayan 450. However, from just about the first day I owned it, I noticed that it had this weird habit of wanting to pull to the right. It would happen pretty bad at slow speeds. It would happen less, but it would still happen at higher speeds. It was something that really concerned me because I didn't want to have any sort of problems with the alignment of the motorcycle, as I'm planning on putting thousands upon thousands upon thousands of miles on this bike, including taking it across the country and back next year for what I am calling the Junebug 2026 motorcycle trip across America and back. It's not very exciting. Luckily, I have a fantastic dealer here in town in Portland, Oregon. They're called Sabatino Moto, and they're over in St. John's. That's the St. John's area of Portland. And from what I understand, and don't quote me on this, they are the #1 seller of Royal Enfield motorcycles in the entire United States. And they're just this little shop tucked away in a nice, beautiful little neighborhood in North Portland called St. John's. Who knew? So we started with truing up the front wheel, because apparently that is a known issue on the Royal Enfield Himalayan 450s. I guess maybe especially with the tubeless version, where the front wheel is, not true. It's not lying, it's just not true. Lo and behold, truing up the front wheel had zero effect on the Royal Enfield Himalayan 450 wanting to pull to the right. So I called Sabatino back and I said, hey, this is still kind of a problem here. Can I take it in for another look? And so I took it in for another look, and it was in the shop for a couple of weeks, and it was finally determined that the problem was possibly caused by a misalignment of the swing arm. So, as I've said in a previous video, the swing arm is attached to the engine because the engine's a stressed member, and apparently it's possible that the swing arm was a little bit misaligned. Well, that got aligned, and that didn't seem to fix the problem either. I held on to the bike for a little bit, and my frustrations were starting to boil over a little bit. I'll fully admit that. I just wanted this thing fixed because all I want to do is ride it. And you might say, hey, having a little bit of a pull to the right issue isn't a big deal. That's fine for you, not so much for me. You do you, I'll do me. You can talk about that in the comments if you want. Anyway, I reached back out to Eric over at Sabatino, and I said, hey Eric, this is still an issue. I'd love to get it sorted because I want to do some touring before the end of the year, and I'd love to do it on a bike that goes straight. Not too long, I got a message back from Eric saying, hey, the shop is taking this really seriously, and we all kind of stayed late one night trying to figure this problem out. But we ended up putting a couple of Royal Enfield Himalayan 450s on their center stand and tipping the back tire to the ground so that the front wheel was off the ground just to see what happened. And you'll never believe this, but they were kind of wanting to steer to the left. The handlebars were, when you took the weight off the front wheel. And I said, if the handlebars are steering to the left, that means that they're counter-steering, and that would cause a turn to the right. Eric went on to say he suspected it was because the clutch cable was a little too stiff, and the way it's routed puts pressure on the handlebars and makes them turn a little bit to the left. Again, I said, And so I went outside, I put my bike on the center stand, I pushed the back end down so that the front wheel was off the ground, and shockingly, my handlebars turned to the left, which means my bike, when riding, would go to the right. Now, just so we're all on the same page, this is the amount of pressure it takes on the right handlebar pushing forward to make the bike turn right. It's less than, I don't know, 1 Newton finger of pressure to make the bike want to do that, and that's exactly what it was doing. So now I'm looking at my bike, I'm noticing that the handlebars are turning left, which means the bike is going to turn to the right. And I also noticed that my clutch cable is pretty stiff and causing the issue. I could see it. But I also noticed that I had moved my mirror and the whole cluster, the whole clutch cluster, over this way so that I could put my Viridian Cruise over in this space. When I did that, I was causing even more pressure on the clutch cable, hence amplifying this whole pull to the right issue. So what I did was I went ahead and I moved the Viridian Cruise Control over to the other side of the mirror stock and moved the whole clutch lever assembly back over to its rightful position. This simple maneuver improved the pull to the right issue of my Royal Enfield Himalayan 450 by, I would now say, 70%. Then I recently took my bike back into Sabatino to have some heated grips installed. Heated grips, 5 stars. And what it was in having its heated grips, the mechanic actually rerouted the clutch cable a little bit for me before he put everything back together, and that added another, say, 10% of difference to the pull to the right issue. So now I'm 80% of the way there, and I'm happy. I could live with this. You can notice that it's tracking straight for the most part, but when I start going slow, it starts pulling to the right a little bit. See, it's doing it right now. It's not a big deal. I could live with it. I know that it's not anything that's, catastrophic. I know that it's not going to cause any sort of death wobble or anything like that, because it's not a structural issue with the motorcycle. It's not like a bent frame or forks out of alignment or anything like that. It's simply a clutch cable that's too stiff. Eventually, I think what's probably going to happen is we're going to have to replace this clutch cable with a different clutch cable, or reroute it in a different way, or find one that's not as stiff or something to make it so that the clutch cable isn't causing any pressure whatsoever on the handlebars when they're in any position. That's the deal. It's something as simple as a clutch cable. Now, if this happened to some of you, maybe you'd be irritated and you'd say, what the hell's wrong with the Royal Enfield? They can't even do a clutch cable right, and it makes the bike pull to the right. Like, I can kind of get that, but it's such a simple thing, and, the bike is still relatively new as far as its production run, right? It's only, a year and a half old or something like that? There are, of course, going to be little bugs in the bike that need to get sorted out. And right now, that's pretty much the only thing that's going on with this bike that's not correct. Everything else has been absolutely flawless. Now, I did have that headlight rattling issue, but that was fixed under warranty, and whatever, that might be a known issue that, who knows? But Royal Enfield's warranty and Eric and his crew over at Sabatino took care of that. And now we're just left with a 20% irritating pull to the right situation. I know that I have gotten a ton of responses to that first video I made about the pull to the right thing from folks telling me that they're having the same issue. I've gotten a lot of advice from people on things to check. I've checked a lot of those things, and none of them were the cause. And I don't think anyone actually mentioned the idea that the clutch cable could be causing this issue. So I think my local dealer might be responsible for fixing a problem that's plagued a lot of us, and hopefully it'll get fixed for everyone, and there'll be no more problems with our bikes pulling to the right. Wouldn't that be fantastic? And I know the guys who did it. That's cool. And the island's on fire or something. That's not cool. So anyway, at least for me, the pull to the right issue that's plagued so many of us on Royal Enfield Himalayan 450s has been identified, has been partially solved, and a permanent solution is in the works. I thought I'd let you all know because I think it's pretty awesome. Why is my island on fire? Whew.